Today we talk about a fantastic book called Fraternity, Adelaide Pub Rock Pioneers. As you can see, it's a very light read. 521 pages. Would you welcome the author up to the stage, ladies and gentlemen? One Mr. Victor Marshall. Here he comes. Thank you, mate. Oh. Victor, you're in the middle, mate. You're in the middle. Congratulations on the book. Your mic should be live. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
How long did it take you to put this monster together, mate?
Almost 4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
Thanks, folks. If you want to have a chat, if we could just maybe wander somewhere else to have that chat, thanks very much. We'd like to have all ears on Victor at the moment because this is a labour of love. 4 years in the making. It's about an Adelaide band called Fraternity. To make one great band, guys, thanks very much. Guys, thank you. To make one great band, generally you need many pretty good bands to create that. And such was the case with Fraternity. It didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't just a bunch of guys that got together and said, we're going to call ourselves Fraternity. They came from all sorts of places.
Yes, they were sort of a bit like a super group.
Yep.
You had, people like John Freeman from Red Angel Panic or John Bissett from The Action. Of course, Bon Scott came from the Valentines. Bruce Howe was in the Clefs, and actually he used to perform with Bev Harrell, who's here today.
Yes. And speaking of the Clefs, of course, synonymous with the name Barry McCaskill. Barry features pretty heavily in the book.
Yes.
And Barry was almost the conduit, pretty much you could say, for the entire putting together of the band.
Yes. Well, Barry had a lineup of the Levi Smith Clefs, which ended up leaving Barry and becoming a band called Tully. And he created a brand new Levi Smith Clefs, which ended up becoming Fraternity, except they would have Bon Scott as the lead singer rather than Barry.
But of course, Barry played with the likes of Bruce Howe and John Bissett and
Tony
Buttell at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And pretty much that, back in the day, that would have to be regarded as the gig in Australia, the Whiskey A Go-Go in Sydney.
Yes, he was. They were playing to the R&R soldiers from Vietnam, so you had a lot of American soldiers there that were all cashed up because they had to, spend a certain amount of money while they were visiting Sydney. So that was a great gig to have. They were getting paid lots. They had, a gig every night.
Yep.
And eventually, Barry had an argument with the owner of the club, and he moved the band to Melbourne, and that's when it sort of split up.
Fragmented.
And then they went back to Sydney because a guy called Jimmy Stewart, who was running Sweet Peach,
who we talked about earlier, of course, the producer of Love Machine.
He got them back up to Sydney and put them in a house in Jersey Road, and then they started playing at a venue called Jonathan's.
Yep.
And they had a band called Sherbet open for them with Daryl Braithwaite. So Daryl Braithwaite was in a band, Sherbet. This early lineup had a guy called Sam C in it,
yep,
who ended up in Flying Circus and later on in Fraternity.
So Fraternity was a little bit of a revolving door at one stage. A few artists came and went. Look, I love the way you've written the book. It is, as you say, primary source. It's full of quotes. Victor's gone to the trouble of tracking down the people, finding the people. If you couldn't track down the live people, you found recordings of the people and you've analysed those and come up with the quotes in the book.
Yes, there was because Bon Scott and Mick Jerd passed away. Their original manager, who I found, a guy called Hamish Henry, had a lot of material with Bon, and Peter Head from Headband had a lot of letters that Bon Scott had written, which are also in the book, and that also helped put together a timeline. So Bon mentioned certain things in his letters, which helped put a chronology together. So that certain gigs in certain times, he dated the letters, which was it's actually mind blowing that he would write back to fans and tell them all these things.
The thing I want to impress upon you about this book is if you think to yourself you're just going to read a book about the band Fraternity, you're really not. You're reading a book about a whole lot of other people. It takes, as I say, a lot of great people and great groups to form a fantastic group, as Fraternity were. So you're getting the story of Jimmy Stewart. You're getting the story of Doug Ashdown. You're getting the story of Barry McCaskill. You're getting the story of all these other guys who helped them along the way, who were the conduits to be there. And so much of Adelaide is involved in this, of course, because Fraternity were brought by Hamish Henry from Sydney to live in Adelaide up at a farm in Aldgate.
Yes. Their manager, Hamish Henry, he used to run City State Motors in the city, and he ended up putting on the My Ponga Music Festival together with Trevor Bryan and a whole bunch of other guys. There's a huge team that helped put that together, and Fraternity were one of the headline acts on there with Black Sabbath. And actually, when I met Hamish up in Queensland, the band actually thought he had long gone because he'd disappeared for 50 years, and Hamish had the Unheard recordings, which we released in a box set, and a third album called Second Chance. There was a artist that he had to do the artwork on the album called Vita Sorellis, used to be here in Adelaide. And that's another interesting story. He used to be in the UK, and he's a famous sitar player. And there's these posters where he's higher on the bill than David Bowie. So there's like David Bowie in brackets mime, Vita Sorellis sitar player, and T-Rex, the glam rock band, on these posters. So a sitar player from Adelaide's on these bills with all these fantastic artists.
I'm looking at Swanee here, and he's just nodding with everything you're saying, mate. You're mentioning these names, he's going, oh yes. And I'm seeing Bruce here doing the same. Bruce was part of the picture, of course, one time tour manager for Fraternity, who lived in the UK with them at one stage. Yeah, well done. And Swanee was a member of Fraternity. We're going to get Swanee up in just a sec. But look, mate, it's also broken down into like about 70 chapters. So, a book you might have 20, 24 chapters. This is about 70. So it is just, the detail is incredible. You're getting detail on Vince Lovegrove, who of course spent so much time in Adelaide. There's a chapter on the Radio 5KA, Norwood Parade, all these different Adelaide connections. So Mount Lofty Ranges, Peter Headband, Red Angel Panic. It goes on and on and on. It's not just a book about Fraternity. You're going to get a lot of insight into the Australian music scene of the time.
It's putting together. I had to keep on looking at it from the perspective of I had to pretend like I knew nothing, because you take for granted that people don't know about the radio ban, or they don't know that. I take for granted that you can mention something, but you have to explain it in case the reader doesn't know about it.
Yes.
And talking with people like Dennis Whitburn, who was putting Sweet Peach together with Derek Jolly and
that's another thing. You find out about what was going on in Melbourne Street at the time, with the crazy house that Derek Jolly lived in and all that sort of stuff. It's a book about Adelaide, guys. Get it? It's fantastic.
The UFO house in Melbourne Street. and talking with Dennis Whitburn, because he hasn't been in Adelaide for a long time, he says, we were in some, a rundown street. And I go, well, you mean Melbourne Street? It's one of the big streets now.
It had its moments.
So it's, and all the venues like Headquarters and, the Octagon Theatre.
20 Plus Club.
20 Plus Club. It's amazing where they all used to play and how many gigs they'd get in a night. Or Bruce Howe was talking about at the Larks Pier Hotel, you had to have a meal, and they give you like a chicken leg and some lettuce, and people would throw it out. It was part of going to the gig.
Yes.
And
that's traditional that was traditional with Good Friday opening. Of course, you had to do that, as you had to provide food for a Good Friday opening. You'd have the food received here and the bin just further down, because that's where it ended up. Look, it's been a labour of love, hasn't it?
Yeah, to find every single one of them, and because some of them are very recluse, and for them to share their story and the way that I wanted to put it together was that it's like a conversation between them. So it was interesting when I'd interview one of them and present them the information from another. They would finish stories off, or it would trigger a memory. And the hardest part of it for me is because I wasn't alive, trying to put trying to put someone else's
He's
story.
65 years old, this guy, but boy, he's got a good surgeon, hasn't he?
Trying to put someone else's story together when people write a book about themselves. It must be a lot easier because you can just draw from your own memory, whereas...
yeah, but you get a fair bit of embellishment along the way, don't you?
Oh, if you're writing a book about yourself, I guess. But with them, you try and put together the way people remember things aren't in a chronological order. They'll remember something from 1969, and then they'll skip to 1982, and then they'll go back because different things trigger a different memory or a photograph.
Different people trigger different memories.
When I started with the Fraternity book, I only ever knew of maybe 2 or 3 photos of them, and we ended up with 2,500 photos.
And the one thing I forgot to do was, of course, bring my computer across here because we've got a few photos. Do you mind just waiting there, Victor?
I can
just be the lonely guy there for a sec, mate, if we can. We're just going to flick through a few photos. You might want to make mention of what's going on in these photos. Here we go. Here we go. All right.
That's before time started.
There we go. There we go. All right. And of course, there we've got the legendary Barry McCaskill, bottom right there.
That's the Levi Smith clefs. And you got Barry down here in the corner, a guy called Tony Butel up there, who was the original drummer of Fraternity, and John Bissett, Bruce Howe, and Mick Jerd.
Mick Jerd down the bottom left.
Who's regarded as one of the best guitarists Australia ever had.
And look, of course, we wish Bon was still here, but really wish Mick was still here. He would have such a story to tell.
Yeah.
What a history.
Some of the footage that Hamish had was Mick was speaking like almost a spokesperson for the band, and it's really good to hear his voice on some of those recordings. Yeah. And he's quoted throughout the book in there. Actually, it's funny to get their perspective on winning the Hoadley's Battle of the Sounds.
Exactly.
Because he's quoted in this. One of the magazines is this really strange communist magazine from 1971 or something. They had just won the Hoadleys, and Bon Scott says, "Oh yeah, but the prize, we only got a certain amount of time in the recording studio to record, and by the time we set up our instruments, they kick us out." And Mick Jerd says, "Yeah, we want a week or 2 to properly record these songs." So
here's a few more, mate. There's another one.
This is just after John Freeman joined. So John joined on drums. Barry McCaskill put together a new Levi Smith clefs when the Fraternity left them, and John was his new drummer. And when Tony left Fraternity, Barry will say Fraternity stole John Freeman from the new clefs. This is when they're in England, and that's them and all their girlfriends and
Where
wives.
are you, Bruce? You taking the photo? Could have been.
Yeah, Bruce would have been taking the photo. Bon's brother's up in the left-hand corner there. And you got Rob Booth, who's here today, the roadie.
Fantastic. Good on you, Rob.
And there's Uncle up there.
Uncle John Ayres.
And Carol Jerd.
Yep.
Irene Thornton, and you got Vicky, and her sister who was married to John Freeman, and to Bruce and his wife.
My God.
And JJ, Bruce's baby, and Anita.
Yep, we'll go to this one in a minute.
This is Mark II, which John Swan was in, who's here today.
Hey, John. I think we'll just flick through the rest. So we got the classic one, the Go Set shot. That's a beauty, isn't it?
Poster from Go Set. Yeah. Beautiful shot.
Does that take it up at Aldgate?
Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And that's just after they won the Hoadleys, and you got Sam C on the end there.
Yep.
Smoking something.
And Sam C was just brilliant at the recent Fraternity concert. He really was the glue that pieced it together beautifully. His memory's beautifully intact, and he told great stories from the stage. It was a sensational show. Of course, Vince Contarino did Bon Scott justice as well. It was fantastic.
Well, Sam's an amazing musician. He's written songs that are on Whispering Jack, and he was... Actually, a funny thing about Sam is that he was in 3 bands that won the Hoadleys, but he never played at the Hoadleys, but he enjoyed the prizes.
Good on him. Good on him. Mick in the middle.
Yeah, that's an early shot from Sweet Peach. That's in Sydney. So you got Bon up in the window
Top right,
there,
yeah.
and John Freeman, John Bissett, Bruce Howe.
Yeah.
That's at Jonathan's nightclub in Sydney, and the walls were tin foil.
And I think that's the last one we've got.
And that's with the John Bissett's keyboard, which had the little fraternity insignia on it.
Now, just joining us right now, Swanee, come on up, mate. Swanee's got a busy day ahead of him. He's popped in just to have a few words about his time with Fraternity. So I'll pass this one over to you, Johnny. There we go, mate. Welcome to town, mate. John Swan, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. Some of these photos, it's like, you know when part of your life just flashes before you? I don't mean a twilight in the operating theatre, but it's actually, you know, you see kids and those kids have got grandkids now, and it's scary. And you weren't born, and you knew all that. You weren't born and you knew all that.
Way you go, Victor, you did it.
Yep.
You want me to interview him? Oh, God.
He's done it that many times.
Well, I suppose a great way to start an interview would be talking probably about the James Wright Group, because there's actually a gig on Sunday. I think that's a benefit for
John Carlini.
John Carlini. And
He's got Alzheimer's.
And you were in James Wright Group before Fraternity, but you're also in a band called Pulse.
And a band called Hard Time Killing Floor.
And Hard Time Killing Floor.
Yep. And Lynn Randell's band before that.
Lynn Randell.
Jeff St. John. I can't remember.
And you followed.
The Adelaide connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You followed Zoot to. You followed them interstate.
Look, I'm from Elizabeth. My dad didn't have a car, and I've had a navigation system, you know, like. And we had no idea how to get there. And they said, we're going to Melbourne. We're going to make the big time. Oh Christ! How many times have I heard that? But up pulls this Zephyr station wagon. Remember a Zephyr? The Zephyr station wagon with all the gear in it. And there's 3 lads in the car. And I thought, where am I going to go? And they went up top on top of the amplifiers there. That was it. But nobody knew how to get there, so we managed to get up to Mount Lofty. And that was the way we found it. There's Zoot, you know, and we got out. Hi guys, how you doing? You know, like, you know, everybody's being really polite. Little did they know we were going to be following them all the way to Melbourne. And by doing that, we got work, you know, because they said, come across. I think I was like 13 and a half, 14, and I got a job with Lynn Randell's band, and that was like She Had Chow Baby, Let's Call It a Day. You remember that song? And it was really strange because you're a 14-year-old, 14 and a half, and you're doing things that 27-year-olds are doing, and you would wish that on no child, you know, like, I seriously mean that. But it's been great. Watching that was kind of sad for me because a lot of my friends aren't with us anymore. And, you know, Hamish Henry, I remember you pulling up outside Victoria Street in the bus. Was it that big bus? Yeah. Yeah. Blue. Could have been any colour, I wouldn't have noticed.
We found that bus recently.
Did you?
Yeah, it's in England. It's sitting in a paddock, rusting away. But it's got. We know it's the fraternity bus because it has fraternity stickers all over it, and
that doesn't mean anything over there.
And it matches all the pictures and everything. But it's, you know, to bring it back here, it cost over $100,000 to.
Well, we could probably raise that.
Oh, so entering, you knew the guys from Fraternity before you joined the
Oh,
band?
yeah. I was a painter and docker with Bon. Painter and docker. I was employed down that end of town, and he used to roll up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't even in the union, and that's, you know, you've got to be in the union. You have to. And they would just say, okay, we've got a new guy here, and they'd give you a number, and then they'd send you away. And my job became guitar player, and then at lunchtime, light the barbecue, cook the snags, and then just keep playing until they said stop, you know. And you did what you were told. But Bon and the boys, they were all quite serious getting in there. And Uncle used to come down, and he would be down inside I think they were frigates. I'm not sure what, is it before frigates? Yeah. And you have to go down and you rivet gun the side of it. And it's this big echo chamber. They stuck me down there with this recovering alcoholic. Of all things to stick to me down with, you know, like. And every time it got quiet, you'd stop because the rivet guns were so noisy. You'd hear this brrr, 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 and then he'd go, ma. And I'm at the front, and he's at the back near the exit, and I'm going, how am I going to get out of here? But I loved it. It was great. And those guys they weren't just friends. They put you up. They fed you, you know. Their wives made the clothes for on stage, you know, like.
Those patchwork pants that Jimmy's wearing.
They're
at the Lark's
mine.
Beer.
They weren't Jim's. He still claims to this day that they're his, but they're not. Because remember the girls doing it. There would be, the girls in the house used to work. They used to do all the working. But they would also be looking after children, and they had the cars, so we had to wait till they would come to go to rehearsals. And every single thing they did, it was a family. It was like a real family, you know. And when you got told off, you got told off by the girls. You didn't get told off by the guys, you know. I've been in contact with Bon's son, which I've got to talk to you about. But I don't know if this is the place to talk about it. And Bon's son is he's out there, and he's sitting on a big packet that he's not getting his hands on. Put it that way, and he will get it.
Is that Dave?
No, that's Brewster.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a fellow that looks quite a lot like him that I've seen.
There's quite a few fellas look a lot like him. Look around this room. No, Bon was very popular. I mean, let's face it, you know, he was a sort of charismatic character, and he would sort of, you know, he'd do things like at headquarters, he'd ride his Harley up the stairs, and he'd park it in front of the stage, get off it, put it on its stand, and get up, and they'd start, up on Cripple Creek, she sends me, you know, like, the band would just, that's not as Bon, you know, what do you expect, you know? Everybody else was going, what the? But, you know, it's not just that. I don't know if you remember the beach concerts that used to be remember when the council used to have the beach concerts? There was all of those bands, you know, Octopus and
Captain Thunder.
Abraham's Lot was Hard Time Killing Floor, my bad. And Fraternity used to come on, and like watching Fraternity back then was for me today. I've got a project to do, and it's what's the name of that movie? The Band. Is it? Oh yeah. Last Waltz. That's it. And watching Fraternity on stage was much like watching that. It was just excellent musician after excellent musician, you know. And they bring you out for a sing, and it didn't matter whether you knew the song or not because they back you up all the way. Great guys. And I learned so much off of Bruce Howell. I learned so much. And Jimmy. Jimmy was under the hammer, you know, because he says that, you know, he came from coaches, or I got out of coaches, and into it. And he came back, and I was playing drums for some reason. John wasn't there, which we won't mention. And Jimmy started singing, but when he started singing, he got hell from Bruce Howard. Stop singing like a white boy. You sound like a bloody white boy, you know. And at night we'd be sitting listening to Little Feet, and he'd be going, you know, hear that phrasing, hear that? That's the seventh, that's the ninth, you know. And we go, yeah, got it. But I swear to you, I would never ever have been a singer if it wasn't for him. I was a drummer, and Jim got exported back to Colchester, and I went back on drums. And it was probably the best fun I ever had. You know, when they played with a full PA, it was loud.
Thank you, Swanee. Thank you, mate. You've got a busy day on your hands. We'll let you go about your business. Thank you for sharing your time with Thank you for sharing your time with Fraternity, the memories of back then. We really appreciate it. And Victor, before you leave the stage, mate, we've got to mention you're down the corner there with your dad, who's looking after finances today. But the book is available today, and of course the box set is available as well.
And we've got to mention Swanee's got a gig on Friday at the Semaphore Workers Club, which Swanee forgot to mention.
Oh.
He's got a gig on at the Semaphore Workers Club if you want to go see him perform some songs and you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to not only thank Victor for writing such a fabulous book and making it available for you today and of course talking about it today, but we've also got to congratulate him on a few other things as well. He's an entrepreneur of note. You might have noticed the GRAPE organisation is now back active, and the GRAPE organisation was originally set up by Hamish Henry, and with Hamish's blessing, basically Victor is now running that thing for him. So the baton has been passed down the generations now. He's running the GRAPE organisation. The GRAPE organisation has been responsible for the fabulous live streams that have come out of the Bridgeway over the past year during COVID. Not only that, but some great live shows that are being seen as well. One upcoming, what's it called, Living in the 80s? No?
Absolutely 80s.
Absolutely 80s with the Shantuzis and Uncanny X-Men, or Brian Mannix and Dave Sterry from Real Life. That's coming to the Bridgeway very soon.
And we've got Normie Rowe and the Master's Apprentices on
Not only
July
that,
31st.
this guy's putting on all these shows, like a la the GRAPE organisation back in the day, but he's also the manager of the Zep Boys as well these days, is Victor Marshall.
Zep Boys, Vince. And,
I mean, plus also, this guy's involved with the Little River Band pretty heavily as well. Well, not the Little River Band that legally owned the name, but the Little River Band that, the real one, not the fake guys in America. You're heavily involved with Glenn Shorrock and those guys.
he said that, I didn't.
Yeah, I said it. Come get me, guys. Come get me. They're very litigious, they are in the States, but there we go. So we would like you to thank Victor Marshall for making himself available today and congratulate him on his fabulous work that he's doing. Victor Marshall, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure, mate. And I want to commend you all for being just so fabulous during that interview.
Wasn't that fantastic?
It was so great to hear so much silence and so much interest in what Victor had to say. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated.
Just in closing though, Victor, I wanted to say to you, as a documentarian and a journalist, I have the utmost admiration for your... It's incredible how much you know about this industry. At your young age, you've preserved all of these people's history. And it's extraordinary what you've done, and you are an absolute genius at it. And this entire community is in your debt for it.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you so
mate.
much.
Take a bow. And I also want to say, pretty much it started with basically Victor becoming David Day's intern.
Correct.
That's where it all started. So our founder father of SupportAct here in South Australia, David Day, was the guy who put this guy on the road to what he's achieved
and
right now.
Thank God he did.
So thank God for Daisy. And the first time I met Victor was when he was pushing Daisy's wheelchair into Vaughan Harvey's funeral at the Berry Chapel. So,
on you, mate.
Victor.
Thank you.
Well done, mate. We super appreciate what you do.
All righty.